This is the G Podcast with your host, Tommy B.
Hey, what's up, y'all? Welcome to a special episode of This is the G Podcast. Tommy B here with Hitman Howie. Hitman, thank you so much, man,
What's
for jumping on, bro. I mean, the other crew, you and I probably talked the most
Okay.
I think we talked the most politics on the little text chain we have.
Right.
We're always going back and forth about politics. Thank you for jumping on. I got to thank Harold Michael Harvey as well. He sent me some information, couldn't be on tonight, from Substack. And I also have a Substack at Tommy B. And I welcome, Howie has one too. If you want to give it, Howie, you can. But the bottom line is there's a lot going on. And there also is a lot going on that could take your eye off what's going on in politics. Now, am I right or wrong, Howard? Do you feel like politics is critical to follow at this point?
Absolutely. I think it is because, the opposition, if you will, they're playing it out long term, man. And we need to change Democrats need to change their stance and start planning long term. Years ago in the past, the GOP started at the local level. And that's where they started to make their most impact. While we were fighting for the White House, they were fighting for the State House. And now we see the changes with the Voting Rights Act and all the changes in our districts. Those things are happening now because they won those areas in the state.
Yep, so true. And we're doing this podcast the day after a really big primary event. So we're taping on May 20th, on May 19th, and more focus on Georgia top line and Alabama top line. There are a lot of local, take a look at wherever you are watching this, listening to this, take a look at your local elections and make sure you pay attention to who won in the primaries, because whoever won in the primaries are going on to the general election, the generals, with the exception of the judges, which I do want to talk about that before we wrap up. That was interesting here in Georgia, the Supreme Court, but I won't jump into it right away. But we've got some really things that I think are really important to talk about. Let's talk about first the governor, Georgia governor, and the Senate. And I've said some things on the show about Keisha Lance Bottoms because, candidly, I felt in the beginning Michael Thurmond was probably the best, prepared to run a state because of he's probably the only black. Is he the only black who's done statewide before?
I think so.
Statewide office?
Not only, he was the first. Exactly right.
In the modern era, at least, since I've been alive, top of the ticket of the gubernatorial race, if you're watching this, of course you are, after May 19th, the Democratic side, Keisha Lance Bottoms basically took that with about 56% of the vote. Now, I want to stop there. Now, I'm going to support her. I'll say that because candidly, we're going to talk about the opposition. There's no way I can see myself voting for her opposition. I just, GOP is dead, and MAGA is the thing for them, and I cannot see myself going in that direction. But I will say this: Keisha Lance Bottoms won by 56% in Georgia. The other candidates, one of them being Michael Thurmond. What was the Estevez?
Estevez came in second, which is surprising.
Yeah, and who was the third? And Duncan, I think.
Duncan came in fourth, and Michael Thurmond.
Yeah, and the thing I want to give me your thoughts on that first, and I'll give you my insight.
I was a little bit surprised. I thought Michael Thurmond would poll better because he has a history of winning statewide races, but I did not see a lot of publicity from Michael Thurmond. I thought maybe at the end there was going to be a big rush. I think in all the time I was watching television, I saw maybe one or two ads for Michael Thurmond. However, I did not see any from Estevez myself. And so his could have been very much just like Michael Thurmond. Maybe it came down to just dollars, having enough dollars to make the run.
Yeah, well, I saw more Estevez than I saw of Michael Thurmond. As a matter of fact, I was disappointed in Michael Thurmond's campaign.
Right.
Just completely disappointed. I'll get to why I'm disappointed in the whole Democrat strategy before we wrap it. But I will say Estevez ran more in the beginning. Actually, okay. Estevez was running more ads before the Keisha Lance Bottoms ads. Okay. Now, Keisha Lance Bottoms went on today and she said, well, she was outspent. And I think she might be right that she may have been outspent by Jason Estevez. But, Michael Thurmond was disappointing. Whereas I came out before he launched, before he even officially announced that he was running, I said I would support him. I couldn't support him when I saw his campaign and I saw his approach. Right. I think he was talking about cutting taxes, the sales tax in half. That was his entire strategy. I just said, dude, you've done more than this.
You're
But
right.
go ahead, but my biggest surprise in the Democratic gubernatorial race is Keisha only winning by 56%. I expected her, even though there were more candidates in the race, I expected more. I knew she wasn't, now if she were to go into a runoff, I would have been shocked. But I'm still surprised it was only 56%. And I'll tell you that because when you look at Alabama and you look at the Democratic side and you look at Doug Jones won by almost 78%. Maybe, of course, I didn't look at the other candidates running against him, but I expected more than 56% total for Keisha Lance Bottoms. Good thing is she can focus on the general election, no runoff, but I expected more than 56%. What about you?
Yeah, I believe the same thing. 56%. For me, I'm with like you. I thought Thurman would play better and would have maybe gotten to a runoff. But once he wasn't there, I thought she should have won by more than the 56%. And you talk about Doug Jones in Alabama, 78.6% of the run there. He blew him out for the Democratic side. And I can't believe Tuberville on the other side. I called my friends and say, what's going on in Alabama?
Well, I think, and a lot of people were talking about that when it came down to the gubernatorial race here on the Republican side. MAGA is still very supportive, and the Republicans are still very supportive. They haven't abandoned
Right. That's true.
And I think, the key will be independence and the Democratic turnout.
Right.
Because keep in mind, I think when people went to the polls in Georgia, there were 30% who were undecided.
Yeah, that's true.
So I look at the 30% potentially as 30% of the people who were saying, well, I'm keeping an open ear and an open eye and an open mind because I'm not happy the way things are.
Right.
And I may make a decision to go with a Democrat. So
Well,
I think, go ahead.
And you hope what helps pushes those 30% to go Democrat is them attempting to redraw the districts and come with this special session to try to redraw the districts. I don't think people want to be told what to do, for lack of a better term, when it comes to their voting options. So give them both an equal opportunity and let me vote for where I want to. Now they're saying, hey, if you don't vote for this guy, your voice is not going to be counted when they redraw the districts. So that makes the Democrats on that side.
The other thing I thought, now, the Republican gubernatorial race in Georgia was bloody.
Oh, yes.
And it's going to be savage going into June 16th. It's going to be ridiculous.
Yes.
Jackson has a war chest. I'm told he asked for an additional $10 million for the runoff. And this is his own money.
Right.
And for those of you who aren't in the state of Georgia, you can go online, probably YouTube or Google some of Jackson's ads. It's brutal.
Yeah.
The way he's going, and Burt Jones, candidly, he deserved a lot of what the ads were saying. Because I've heard this since he's been in office. A lot of people are aware of the fact that his family has a lot of money. They own a lot of gas stations. They own a company here, a notable gas station here in the state of Georgia. And there was some shenanigans going on in terms of some of the bills that passed while he's been in office.
Exactly.
Jackson went after him. My question on the Democratic side, do you think it was a mistake for the other candidates to not go after Keisha Lance Bottoms?
Well, I think for the most part, Keisha Lance Bottoms' name recognition helped her across the line a lot more than some of the other guys. Derek Jackson, Estevez, Duncan, those names we don't recognize. And if
do you think it was a mistake for them not to go after her?
Yeah.
Knowing that she's topped.
Exactly. But how do you go after her? Her 4-year term in the city of Atlanta, the only thing they said, what I can understand, is that they abandoned her. They wanted her to run another term, and she stepped out and went to D.C. to work for the Biden administration. Outside of that, she did a relatively good job in the city of Atlanta. It was no huge hiccups or nothing that stood out that was extremely bad when she was in term in the mayor of Atlanta. So it wasn't much there other than the defection to the Biden administration.
Now, I'm not here trying to bring it up for the Republicans, but you got to look at what happened during the George Floyd situation when the buildings were on fire.
Right.
The Wendy situation. In addition to that, the crime rate was extremely high.
I think you're right. I think the crime rate may have been something to discuss, but the only thing I heard her say during that time is, stop drinking brown liquor and y'all go home.
Yeah.
Outside of that, it wasn't, she kind of got that homegirl attitude when she was on the news. It's like, yo, what's up? Go home.
Yeah.
But beyond that, I don't know if it, anything really jumped off.
Okay.
With the George Floyd thing.
I know what I hear a lot of people say is Democrats don't beat each other up. But I've got to say this. There was no chance of the other Democrats winning when she decided to run. And in my opinion, the only way they could have won was to reposition her. And they decided not to. I don't think in any ad, any interview, any of the other candidates said anything about her. You're not going to win if you don't reposition the leader.
Yeah.
And that's what, that was the thing I wanted to say. I don't think you needed to get as bloody, but
as a GOP, right?
Oh my God. It was like a Netflix roast on the Republican side. They were going hard. But I will say you can't beat a candidate if you don't go after them in 2026. If you don't reposition them. If you let them stay where they are, you let them stay in their safe space, you're going to get what you got.
Well, do you think the Democrats decided to do that because they know that the race will be tight when it comes to November? You did not want to give the Republicans any ammunition when it comes to the major race or the race in November?
I think they've already got it.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's nothing more they can do on the Democratic side to feed ammunition against Keisha Lance Bottom.
Right.
I mean, as a matter of fact, if I don't know if you saw it, even though Jackson didn't have to do an ad against Keisha Lance Bottoms, he had one. He had an ad.
Okay.
Focusing on the city of Atlanta and her leadership.
Okay.
He didn't have to do that. All he had to do was focus on Burt Jones.
Right.
And he knew that, but he didn't, he decided to go ahead and start early.
Toss one out there, huh?
You know what I'm saying? So he had one running. Now, on the Republican side, of course, you've got Burt Jones was at 38%. Now, how did it end? I want to make sure I'm correct here. Burt was 38?
Yeah, so I got Burt at 38.35 and Jackson at 32.52, which was really close for Jackson being a newcomer to the political race.
Yeah, because frankly, before Jackson stepped in, Burt Jones was the heir apparent.
Right.
They had already given him the governor's race on the Republican side, at least.
Yeah.
Until Jackson stepped in.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And I thought Brad would run a little bit better on the Republican side, but he came in at 15%, which I guess is third place. But wow, that's pretty low for a guy who had won a statewide race already anyway.
Yeah, I thought that I kind of felt because of what he did in that voting situation.
Yeah, recording and showing, and
I didn't think, I didn't think he was going to have it. I mean, he ran a clean campaign. He understood that he needed to show that the other two were just beating themselves up and not talking about the issues for the people. But candidly, him and Carr, I didn't see having a chance.
Yeah.
I didn't see having a chance.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts about the gubernatorial race, man?
Well, I'm kind of wondering, what's their platform? When it comes to the GOP, Jackson and Jones, they beat each other up so much, but I guess cutting property tax, cutting state taxes. That's the thing. I'm a little surprised because if you cut all the taxes, how's the state going to function? But I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
It's all about pulling money away from the schools. I mean, candidly. Public schools, Medicare.
Yeah.
Medicare.
Medicaid, yeah. Mm-hmm.
That's why you're having the issue with the hospitals, especially the rural hospitals in Georgia.
Right. Exactly.
So it's that Republican. How do you say it? I hate to keep going back to it, but it's that trickle down. Give it to the rich, and they'll help everybody else.
Good luck, right?
Good luck with that.
That's exactly right.
So it all goes back to the trickle down. Yeah. Hey man, looking at the U.S. Senate, Ossoff versus the unknown right now, but Ossoff ran unopposed, and he's got about $31 million in cash on hand, which he didn't have to spend.
Right.
Maybe a little bit of digital here and there, but he's on his own. Yeah. What we need to really look at, I think, in the state of Georgia is the GOP runoff. Now, Mike Collins, I'm unfortunate enough to live in his district when he was a congressman, and Derek Dooley, which was a big surprise for me because I think what helped Derek Dooley at the end was Kemp. I didn't think Kemp was going to come out for him.
Yeah.
As adamant as he is with the endorsement. So it's going to be Mike Collins and Derek Dooley fighting for the opportunity in the runoff in June to go up against John Ossoff. What are your thoughts on the Senate race?
Well, I was surprised that Derek Duty performed so well. And like you said, after Kemp came out and supported him, maybe that pushed him over a little bit. But he's a newcomer to the political arena as well. And I was surprised he did so well. Buddy Carter had been around for a minute, and he performed number 3, but I was surprised by that. I think Ossoff is going to win it again. I really do. I think he's done enough good stuff and hasn't been a thorn in anyone's side on the GOP to cause him to lose it to Mike Collins. So I trust he'll win it again.
Ossoff's he's a better politician than he was when he first ran.
I agree.
He's more poised. He answers questions better. He just looks better in his commercials when he presents, or when you see him on digital when he presents himself. So he's not the politician they ran against when he initially ran. He's a different politician. I just hope Dooley is not another Tuberville. I don't think we can go any lower than we'll talk about that when we get to Alabama because we're almost there. Yeah. But I don't think you can go lower than Tommy Tuberville.
I don't think so.
But I just pray, as a football coach, he knows more about dealing with people and dealing with politics than Tommy Tuberville did.
Yeah, he doesn't come off Tummyville-ish, but I agree with you. I hope he's not, Tuberville-ish. He comes off a little bit more polished, and I think he's running not only with Kemp, but also name recognition, I think, is what he's running on as well, because I don't think he knows the lay of the land. Kind of like Ossoff when his first run around the track. Didn't really know the lay of the land, so we'll see what happens in that race.
And Collins is under the specter of possibility of, I think, not an indictment, but there's an investigation.
Right.
And Buddy Carter teased it, which is interesting because Buddy Carter was supposed to be the MAGA warrior, right?
Right, that's exactly right. That was a commercial.
So that didn't help.
No.
And the other thing, before we leave this, and we're going to go to Bama.
No, I was just thinking, the MAGA support and Trump coming out for people has helped some.
Yeah.
In Kentucky, definitely, but it didn't help Buddy Carter at all. And then even in a gubernatorial race here in Georgia, you thought it would push, what's his name, Jones over the line, but it didn't. Yeah. So Jackson said he's Trump-like, if you will. So we'll see who can become, get the most support out of the mega crowd in that race.
Howie, when you look at the overall Republican running, all the Republicans running, and you look at, I think you may have already mentioned this, you look at the approval rating of the president, and the universe for Trump has shrunk.
Exactly. From
where it has been, I think, from every election, from the first, second, and now where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
How important do you think, because I'm looking, I mentioned Buddy Carter.
Mm-hmm.
He's hugging Trump in the picture in a TV commercial. He's MAGA warrior. He's got Trump's voice in the commercial, and he loses. So, is that an albatross? Because it's just like the shellacking in the second term of Obama. Is it important to embrace that or kind of go off on your own?
That's an interesting question because years ago, if the president's approval rating was low, the person did not tie themselves to them. But this MAGA crowd, to your point, seems to be coalescing around Trump, and whoever Trump supports seem to go with regardless of his approval rating. So you think if you say all MAGA approval rating, Trump's approval rating is probably pretty good. But if you say all Americans or all people, then that's where it seems to drop. Some people are still hanging on to him because they want to, at least for the primary, because they want to make sure, hey, in the primary, I get the primary win. I'm curious to see post-primary if these guys still hang on to Trump as they did during the primary.
Yeah, we'll wait and see. We'll see in November. We'll see in November. I want to move on to Alabama, man, just for a few. Shout out to our friends in Alabama, Tuberville and Doug Jones. And Doug Jones has been very familiar for the nation because he was actually, I guess, in Senate.
Right.
Or he was in Congress. So what are we looking at? Kay Ivory is term limited. So you've got Tuberville and Doug Jones. All right. Thoughts on what we saw in the primaries?
So Doug Jones was one of the first Dems to win a statewide race in the city, in the modern Alabama. And that's why his name is recognized. One issue I see, and I think Doug Jones is a good person. He'll make a great governor for the state. You see some dramatic changes if he wins that race. Tuberville's at the bottom of the barrel, man. I can't say anything about him. But what I do find extremely interesting is total votes. The Dems in the Alabama total votes 364,635, and the total votes on the GOP side 193,376.
Wow.
The Dems got to get out. They got to get out and vote in the state of Alabama.
I will tell you that as we have the conversation about breaking up the districts and redrawing the districts, one of my biggest criticisms of these states is voter turnout.
Right.
Now, Mississippi, for example, has a pretty high registration rate, but they don't turn out.
Right.
Same way with Louisiana. Same way with Alabama. Now, Georgia has a solid, respectable turnout.
Right.
And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that you've got the Atlanta and surrounding areas. Is a dominant part of the state. But, I mean, you know, the turnout is an issue, man. Turnout is a significant issue, and we just see it. What was the number again?
So for governor, Democratic, Alabama, 364,635.
Yeah.
Governor, GOP, 193,376.
So that's the primary. Yeah. We're not talking about a general election where everybody has a choice to vote for one or the other.
Right, exactly right.
Yeah, so it doesn't spell success, candidly. I'm just gonna be straight up with you. It doesn't spell success for Doug Jones unless he can fix the turnout.
Yeah, that's the thing. What is the answer to that? Why are we turning out so low? And I'm not talking about black or white. I'm talking about Democrats in general.
Yeah.
We're not having no poll tax or check how many jelly beans in a jar anymore. You simply show your ID and go vote, man.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
I would say apathy. I don't know, man. But I think if, you know, this situation right now, the numbers you mentioned, you know, Doug's he's up a hill. He's running up a mountain right now. So even though he was dominant, 78% of the vote. Same thing with Keisha. That's why I said when it came down to Keisha Lance Bottoms, now Georgia's a state where you can vote in the primaries and then flip. You can switch up and vote differently. You might take a Democratic ballot in the primaries, but in the general election, you can vote however you choose.
Exactly right.
You can go either way. So it's going to be interesting, man, because my thing is, I think it's going to be turnout.
Yes.
But you got to, I mean, candidly, you know, you got to excite the vote. You got to bring people in.
Right.
You know, I'm not sure. I just want to briefly mention this. It's another podcast, but this whole boycott the SEC thing, you know, and considering you and I know how rabid the fans are for these teams in the SEC, that's black men.
Right.
In these cities, these states. So how do you think they're gonna, even when you look at it, how do you think they're gonna respond to that? You think that's gonna get support from black men?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
Even if they're black men who have sons who could be potentially considering these schools?
I don't think in large numbers.
Okay.
I don't think in large numbers. You may get one or two, and I think we get one or two of those all the time. Just talking about HBCUs. Why go to Georgia when you go to HBCU? I went to HBCU. Grandma went to HBCU. Granddad, you know, that type of thing. So it may impact one or two. But man, listen. When you're talking about NIL money and what Georgia can play versus, you know, some of these other schools, you know, or what some of these SEC schools are willing to pay, facilities, man, it's hard to pass up.
Yeah. So
I think the conversation should be more about educating them on how to vote and how to make change in their voting. Not if you go to Georgia versus USC, the Southern Cal.
Right.
I think we should educate them. Hey, get to the polls and vote for what we want long term.
Yeah, I agree. Any other thoughts, man? As we look at Alabama moving on, I just, you know, the turnout for me is always going to be an issue.
Exactly. But you know what I find surprising also, and I was looking this
up.
Which
I don't want it to be an issue. Go ahead.
It shouldn't be an issue because I don't know what hinder you from getting out. You got early voting, you got mail-in ballots, you got then the day of voting. So, I mean, come on, take a lunch break or take a half hour or get your mail-in ballot and get it in. It's, you know, I don't know what hinders you. But what I find interesting is I thought the demographics in Alabama and Georgia were different. But still, there is still double-digit white percentage in these states than it is African Americans.
Wow.
And that's interesting to me. I did not realize.
And explain that.
Okay. So in the state of Alabama, white only, no Hispanic, no Latino, 63.7%.
Wow.
White owned. And African Americans in the state of Alabama, 26.5%. So think about that for a minute. It's already twice as many. And then if you start putting us in jail or giving us records where we can't vote, that even dilute our ballot even more. And then if we get any apathy in there, that dilutes the vote even more.
Yeah.
So it's going to be really tough for statewide races in these southern states for people of color to win. I'm not talking about Republican or Democrat, because I think here in the state of Georgia, we had a black Republican running. He did not fare well at all either.
Yeah, so true.
Yeah.
So I want to do a quick pivot to local. We're in Georgia, so I will ask you, I mean, if you're in your state, take a look at wherever you are in your state, your city, your district, take a look at some of the folks how they fared. One of the big things that happened here, as you know, Congressman David Scott passed away in April, and there was actually in the midst of a campaign. Of course, he was not reelected. I mean, in some cases, oddly enough,
his name was still on the ballot.
His name was, people have won after their demise, but he did not win, of course. Jasmine Clark was the winner. She clinched the Democratic nomination. This is a district that is predominantly black. So whoever wins the Democratic primary, now this is before the possibility of, now it's already been redrawn. Now this is beyond this is after another redraw, which is still predominantly black. So typically the winner in the Democratic primary will go on to win the general election, okay, for the 13th. Jasmine Clark, very strong, looks like she was well-funded. As a matter of fact, a lot of people criticized the funding because of the PAC that gave her as much of the money to run the TV. You know, you got something in your mailbox every other day. The PAC that paid for it was a big, what do you call it, digital currency, pro-crypto. But they're also pro-crypto Republican, and they go after Democrats for pro-crypto. So she got the money.
Right.
She was, criticized for that, but the people didn't care. She's probably going to be in.
Yes. So
that's a done deal on that end. Any other thing to mention on the local side that may have stood out in Georgia?
What stood out with me a little bit was the, and I think you said you were going to mention it, was Jen and Miracle on the Supreme Court.
Georgia Supreme Court.
Georgia Supreme Court. I thought they had a very good article, very good platform to run on. Support for women, looking for women's vote, but they didn't perform well. One got blowed out, and one came in, reasonably tight.
Maybe within 2%. 2%
exactly.
Points. Miracle. Jen lost double digits.
Double digits, right? Miracle came in close.
Don't send email to Howie or text Howie. I'm saying this. I think the female reproductive right argument has passed. I mean, we've moved on beyond it. I think they spent, not to say it's not something you should stand up for as a judge. Right. You should always remind people that the Republicans took it away.
Right. Right.
But the thing that the incumbents did was they went out and said, hey, we're judges. We're not partisan. We have anything, we made the ruling based on the law, the facts of the cases. I would have spent more time asking people, do you like where you are? I think there are more issues that impact both men and women where rulings have been made that could have come up in their plea for votes.
Right.
So I thought it was a little too heavy.
Right.
Now, they're in a position now where you can't codify it. It's not going to be, not with the Supreme Court.
Right.
So what can you do to fix it? Really, truly, as long as the Supreme Court still exists, there's not much you can do. Go ahead.
Well, you don't think you can codify based on the Congress and Senate voting to
I think if it goes to the Supreme Court, you're back.
Turn it down.
You're back at square one, even if you have a new president.
Well, that might be the same thing.
If you still have the members of the Supreme Court, that's why I think it's so important for a new president and taking over Congress and possibly the Senate would allow the Dems, which is what they should have done when Biden took over, but Pelosi didn't want to do it, expand the Supreme Court.
Right.
Or even when it came down to, you can change the rule. The rules of the Supreme Court aren't in the Constitution. You can change that. So even if it comes down to put term limits, some people are talking about term limits on the Supreme Court. So I think unless you change the Supreme Court, there's not much you can do about that. So I just thought it was a moot point.
Yeah.
Miracle performed better. Jen did not. And I think it's an important lesson, in my opinion, because it was a statewide one and done. It was really like a general election.
Exactly.
If I'm Keisha Lance Bottoms, I'm looking closely at what happened.
Yeah. But do you think...
Because that's what I'm going to be dealing with in November. Go ahead.
Exactly. Do you think Jen and Miracle being tied together was impactful?
Well, I will say
Meaning
this.
if Miracle would have ran on her own, maybe she would have did better?
I think it was interesting. I actually thought it was smart in the beginning. Because, you know how it is. When you go to the polls, there's so many things on the ballot.
Oh, gee, it was a larger ballot this year. You're exactly
You
right.
had to write notes. You had to come in there with notes. I had to print a sample ballot and go through it before. But I'm here to tell you, I think them together made, I was thinking Jen and Miracle, so I thought it was helpful. Now, the interesting thing about this is somebody challenged their running from an ethics standpoint.
Right.
They didn't, they challenged the ethics of it, which I think, it didn't get very far. But I think it's a lesson for Keisha Lance Bottoms statewide, because this was a statewide election, Republican versus, really, even though the other two were talking about we're not Republicans, y'all Republicans.
Yes, exactly right. That's exactly right.
Y'all overturned and we're in lockstep with MAGA. Y'all Republicans.
Right. That's exactly right.
So I would ask. I think it's a lesson. If I'm the Keisha Lance Bottoms team, I'm looking at what happened. I'm going to do a what do you call it? A biopsy. I want to go in and chop that race up and see what happened.
What happened? Right. See where the votes came from. I hear you. I hear you.
Because it was statewide. It was a one and done, just like the general election is going to be. But go ahead.
Well, I'm curious to see what Keisha Lance Bottoms' next step is and how she's going to move forward. I hope she got some dirty ads out there on either one of the other governors, or Jones or Jackson. But I hope she also talks about what she hoped for the future of the state of Georgia and how try to get some of these downstate rural areas into her pocket. She just need a few, because I think she's going to win the metro area. She's going to need a few downstate. I think she's going to win the Savannahs of the world. But that down south, west part of the corner of Georgia, just south of Albany, that's going to be difficult. And then up, of course, in the Dalton area, it's going to be very difficult. Dalton, Roman.
Even middle. Yep.
You think Macon's going to be difficult for her?
Well, Macon, when you go outside of Macon, the pockets, even when you look at Warner Robins,
right?
Okay, around you may have even Macon is split, even though the core of it, the heart of it, is predominantly black, and then you stretch it out to the suburbs, it's more equal. Right. That's the thing about a lot of these cities. The core is black when you go into the traditional areas, just like Atlanta. Right. You go to the core, and then you start expanding outward, which, the multiple counties in the city of Atlanta, then it becomes less black. Right. So, I think it's going to be interesting. My thing, and I heard her talking about betting casinos as a possibility. I think she's got to do stuff or say things that appeal to everyone in the state and still is inclusive of the Atlanta metro.
Right.
Okay, let's do a quick comparison, and I want to wrap it, but her and Stacey Abrams. If you look at Keisha and Stacey Abrams, what do you see between the two? If you think about Stacey running and you think about Keisha running, Keisha Lance Bottoms.
Yeah, I think Keisha Lance Bottoms is more likable, for lack of a better term. She comes across more personable. I think their biggest issue is going to be men of color. I think Stacey did not attract men of color to her campaign. At the end, I think she rode in with maybe Killer Mike, and I'm not sure if T.I. was there, but I know Killer Mike was. I think,
but it was tough.
It wasn't an easy thing for her to do.
Yeah.
So, but I hope Keisha Lance Bottoms comes across to the African-American male a bit more than her and Kamala Harris at the time as well, because I think that's where the disconnect was when they were running their races.
Well, if I were to put those three together, I'd say Keisha's on top.
Yes.
I think she did have, and I'm just making an example because I'm in the city and I'm around it. She did have more support from the local rappers.
Yes.
Which, you bring in a killer. I'm not saying that's going to help her statewide.
Right.
But when we take a look at, all the pockets, there's Atlanta, then there's Georgia. Two different,
that's the truth.
Two different worlds.
Right.
It's going to be interesting. And I'm not sure, because what she did in the primary was very safe.
Yes.
Because basically she knew she was going to win. I think the goal was not to make a mistake.
Right.
Going forward, she's going to have to appeal to everybody. And that's a balance.
It's going to be very difficult. It's going to be there's a population out there that will talk all the things, female population, I'm not getting on ladies, but they will talk all this stuff and then vote the way their husband tells them to vote. And you know who I'm talking about.
Yeah.
How do
White women. Let's just say it, call it what it is, man.
How do you combat that?
They've been dooming us since
1960s voter rights tax.
At least in the modern era. But the reality is, how do you combat that? How do you give them enough energy and enough willpower to say, I'm in this booth on my own, I'm smart, I can think, and I'm going to vote for this person because it's best for me and not necessarily what my counterpart has said to me. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting when it comes down, because I'd go back and take a look at how white women voted for Jen and Miracle.
Right.
Statewide. I'd take a look at that. Now, as we tape this on the 20th, within probably a week, maybe it may not come out until after the runoffs, but they're going to break out how the demographic breakout. They're going to do all Secretary of State's offices. They're going to do a breakout demographically of how candidates performed. And I think that's going to be important to look at. And it's going to be important for Keisha because she needs to see. Now, she's not going to see it in the primary, but that's why I say, hey, look at this Democrat versus Republican battle for judges and dig a little deeper into the demographic.
Yeah, you can go online right now to state election results, and it gives you the numbers, and then it gives you a view result by county. So you can at least get it down to the county right now. And then at some point you can get it, it'll deep dive it a little bit more.
Yeah, you can get the demographic, you can get the blacks, or you can see this. And honestly, you can look at the counties, you can tell which counties are more black, more Hispanic.
Right.
So we'll see. Hey man, I'm gonna stop it there. You got any last words, anything we didn't?
Yeah, no, you hit everything. I just want to finish up with this because you put me onto this and I tried it several times. Google the name of your representative plus, you got to put the plus sign, plus bills that they sponsored, plus bills that they passed, and see what's out there. I did that for Scott, the gentleman who passed away. And what I saw was a whole bunch of renaming of post offices and stuff like that. And we keep putting these people in office, and they're not really producing for us.
Yeah.
So each person should go out and do that Google search. And you put me onto that, and I appreciate that, to say, hey, what are you doing for us? We keep sending you back to Washington, and you're not doing anything for us necessarily.
Yeah. And if you go to my Substack, and I didn't use it for this because of the post-election, but we were going to do a taping pre-election that talked about the Substack, and I said, let me not be crazy and mean. Let me wait until after and talk about the results. But if you go to my Substack, I think it's Tommy B, if you want it, hit me up. Subscribe too as well. But it talks about, basically we have to choose better candidates if we want to win. We got to choose better people who can win.
Right.
So I think it's going to be important going forward. I think Keisha Lance Bottoms, if she had run that second term, I don't think she'd have any issues. I think she'd be in a much better position because of running the city of Atlanta, which is a big deal.
Yes.
More so than Stacey Abrams. But because she decided not to run that second term, I think that's going to hurt her eventually. But I'm still a supporter. I'm still going to vote for her because the other two options are treacherous.
Yes, exactly.
So I'm going to leave it at that. Go ahead. Last word for you, man.
Oh, no. I got it, man. I appreciate it. Vote. If I was Tanya B, I would tell you to go vote, check your voting status, go to the polls, man, go get it, because this is an important election. The next several elections are going to be extremely important elections for this country.
Absolutely. Hey, y'all, we are at everything's@castropolis.net. I'll just tell you to go there. If you see our podcast, this is the G Podcast, You Need to Know Podcast, all the podcasts, subscribe to them on Spotify, and very soon our video podcast will be on Apple Podcast, because Apple's opened it up so that the video podcast, not just the audio, is available. So probably by the end of the year, we're already a video podcast on Spotify, but soon we'll be a video podcast on Apple. Man, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it. Last minute, shout out to you, shout out to fam, shout out to the boss for allowing you to come on.
Thank you. I'm happy to have family.
Yeah, man, we are taking a break on this G Podcast. This is Memorial Day weekend coming up, and also we'll be back, it looks like the 29th. So, hey, y'all, enjoy. If you have any comments and questions, all the ways to hit us up. Just look at the QR code, and it'll take you there. All right, y'all, for that special election episode is wrapped. Y'all have a great week. Peace. Power to the people. Have a great weekend.
You've been listening to This is the G Podcast. This is the G Podcast is a production of the Castropolis Podcast Network. Thanks for listening.